Hello and welcome to Sole Purpose. My name is Jason. This is the channel where we discuss, explore, and review both active and everyday footwear with a focus on heritage construction, natural materials, and styling. Today we will be reviewing the $1,000 Viberg Hiker to determine just what you get for your money. We'll take this out around town, out onto some of the local trails, and then assess its durability, its comfort, and appearance to decide if it's worth that hefty price tag. So stick around. Before we get started, let's quickly discuss some of what we will cover in this video. First, we will take a look at who is Viberg, the brand that produces this boot, and some of their history in the footwear industry. Then, we will take a deep dive into the boot itself, the materials being used, some of the construction, and any unique features. Then, we'll take it out around town and onto some of the local trails to determine where it excels and where it falls short, before coming back to give it an overall score out of Sole Purpose's unique 10-toe rating system. So let's get to it. Viberg is a Canadian brand that has been producing footwear for almost 100 years and is considered one of the finest boot makers in all of North America. They're a third-generation family-owned business that first began producing footwear in 1931. The origins of the brand stem from creating the most capable and durable footwear for those who truly needed it, specifically farmers, tradesmen, and loggers. To give you an example of their commitment to quality, in an era when most boot makers were using steel and iron to construct and last their footwear, Viberg opted to use the arguably more expensive and difficult to use brass materials simply because it didn't rust and it was more durable for those who needed it in those diverse and more demanding conditions. They would eventually expand their product line to also include dress shoes and more everyday footwear, but to this day, they are primarily known for their use of the most premium quality materials, for the best construction, and for the attention to the finest details. So now that you know a bit about the brand, let's take a closer look at the boot. The Hiker is Viberg's attempt at taking all of that knowledge and all of that experience building some of the most durable and capable true outdoor workwear and infusing it into a more recreationally focused design without sacrifices to quality. In Viberg's own words, developed for versatility, the Hiker combines utilitarian design with industrial performance suited for alpine trekking and outdoor exploration. And believe it or not, this design dates back to the 1960s, so Viberg has been building and perfecting this for almost 80 years now. The Hiker retails for $910, which is a lot. And to add insult to injury, there is still a $75 shipping fee. So with shipping and with taxes, you're looking at about $1,000 for this outdoor and active footwear design, which is pretty steep for what you would expect for a boot like this. So it'll be very interesting to see how this performs once we get it out there and see just where it fits, what it excels at, and where it falls short, because it's quite a hefty and robust design, but lacks some of the features you would expect to see on some of the more Pacific Northwest built design boots that are true workwear oriented. So I'm excited to find out and dig a little deeper into this. Taking a look at the construction and starting from the top down, in this makeup, we have an upper leather of Charles F. Stead oiled culotta, which is one of the best leather manufacturers and tanneries that you can find around the world. You also have a calfskin lining. This is a single cut of leather for the patterning. So again, all the way around here, the quarter, the vamp, and back, you've got one continuous piece of leather, which is excellent to see in an outdoor and active footwear design, especially all leather construction like this, just because the fewer seams that you have, all that stitching, there are fewer weak points that you're introducing into the design. It makes it a little bit more robust and long lasting. Okay, so working our way down, we have a veg tan leather insole that is topped with this same calfskin lining, just to make it a little bit more comfortable, ease some of the break-in period that you can experience with more difficult veg tan leather. We also have a pretty thick veg tan midsole, and all of this is combined using a 270-degree storm welt stitch down construction. That right there, seeing the storm welt, seeing a stitch down construction, definitely indicates that this is a more outdoor and active use boot. You know, stitch down, and especially a storm welted stitch down, is some of your better welting for weather resistance and water resistance, just general resisting the elements that you might experience when outside on the trails in snowy, muddy, wet conditions. Now this also means that the boot is resolable, which is great. That's something you definitely want to see with A, something this expensive, but B, something that is intended for more active and outdoor use, just because you're going to have an increased amount of wear on that outsole. A stitch down construction like that does mean it's resolable. That being said, this is a trickier boot to resole. Stitch downs are typically already a little bit harder to resole than say a more common Goodyear welt, but also Viberg has a little bit more of a unique stitch to it. They have a different SPI on their welting machines than maybe are the most common. This also being, you know, a storm welt, the level of construction that it is, you are definitely going to want to take this to a very reputable and capable cobbler before attempting that. Speaking though then of resolability, the outsole that we see on this is a Goodyear Commando lug. That's pretty common. You know, a Commando lug is definitely intended for more rugged and outdoor use. So that's great to see here. You would hope for that if that were truly the intention there. So now taking a look at the hardware on this, what you've got here are patinated brass D-rings and speed hooks. What's interesting about Viberg's design choice here though is the speed hooks actually go over the instep. Typically you only see that, you know, the last couple lace intersections near the ankle is where you would get a speed hook, but they actually start with D-rings, move to a few speed hooks, and then end with D-rings, which is not something that you typically see. But what is worth pointing out is that these speed hooks actually use a double rivet instead of a more common single rivet. This again really highlights Viberg's attention to detail and commitment to quality and longevity. Obviously having two rivets there on something that is a high wear, high tension area like a speed hook is just going to last a lot longer. It's going to keep them from moving around, keep it stable and better affixed to the boot. Now I want to quickly touch on some of the unique features of this boot. One of which is that these are actually thinsulate lined. So between this Charles F. Stead upper and this calfskin lining, there is a separate third lining layer in between them of branded thinsulate lining. This is beneficial for if you're going to use this in outdoor cold weather applications and things like that, which is really cool and a pretty interesting and unique thing to see. Obviously that will have some detrimental impacts as far as maybe the breathability and the versatility of this boot could potentially be a little bit too warm for more casual summertime use as a hiking shoe. We're limiting the versatility there, but for an all leather construction boot, which, you know, cold weather is definitely a potential issue, that's a really cool, neat feature to see. Now, one other unique feature, which is not that uncommon for outdoor and active footwear, is that we have a gusseted tongue, which is fairly common with heritage construction boots, all leather outdoor workwear, and hiking and active wear. But what is a little bit cooler and a little bit unique that not everybody does though is that Viberg has this much thicker overlapping tongue here. So that allows them to use a much thinner material leather here on the gussets where it actually is coming into contact with your foot. So that allows it to be a little bit more comfortable, easier to break in, easier to wear for long periods of time. But because then they use a much thicker leather to wrap over a continuation of the leather from this regular, much thicker upper on the outside here, you get that added benefit of protection from the elements, from debris and rocks, and it also then reduces the amount of wear and strain that you're going to have on the gusset and the abrasion that you would see from the laces, and focuses it on this little cover cap here, like I said, allowing them to use a much thinner, more comfortable gusseted tongue that can then focus on just sort of keeping out sort of some of the smaller debris and aspects of, you know, the elements and weather that might make its way past that fold over. So moving on to the fit of the boot, this is built on Viberg's 9220 last. And what Viberg has to say about the 9220 is that it was designed for support and comfort during alpine trekking and hiking. A rounded toe last available in E-widths, the 9220 has extra depth throughout to allow room to wear winter weight socks or thin removable footbeds. So clearly we're getting a better sense of where this boot is being directed towards. We've got colder temperatures as a focus to allow for thicker socks. We've got storm welt for improved waterproofing and weather resistance. And then obviously we have a thinsulate lining to help insulate the boot. So we're getting a better sense of Viberg's intentions for this boot. Now, from my experience, as far as the sizing, the fit, and the comfort, these most definitely are on the roomier side. There's no question about that. First trying them on, there's quite quite a lot of room, quite a lot of play. This isn't a bad thing though. Very clearly intended to wear thicker socks for a little bit of better moisture control, comfort, and then obviously the added benefit of warmth. But not only that, when you are wearing a boot for a long time, or if you're hiking and on your feet for multiple hours, your feet tend to swell. Not only that, when you are hiking and walking around on loose and unstable footing, as you are planting your feet, the ball of your foot tends to spread out and splay out. This helps aid, stability and traction, gives you better balance. So having a boot that can help accommodate that expansion of the foot is ideally what you would want to see in a last. Now, this is a very stiff, robust boot. When I first tried this on, my foot felt like it was swimming around. These have been broken in a little bit, so you might notice that in the quality of the leather and things like that. So please bear that in mind as you're going through this review so far. But I had a significant amount of heel slip. My foot was sliding around in there a lot. Wearing thicker socks during the initial break-in period most definitely helped improve that. As the leather began to break in and soften and was able to pull a little tighter and conform a little bit better to my foot as it relaxed, the fit drastically improved. That is something most definitely to keep in mind. This is a very hard boot to break in. It will take quite a while, so keep that in mind. As far as the sizing goes, Viberg sizing is a little bit unique and very much unique to them. They say they are UK sizing, which to some extent is true, but not in the traditional sense that we know of it today, whereas you take a full size down from your US size. So I'm a US size 10 Brannock. Traditional UK sizing would be a UK size 9. The majority of Viberg boots, despite what they say on the website, this is very well known throughout the whole footwear and boot community. You actually want to take a half size down. So I would wear a 9.5 Viberg sizing for a US size 10 Brannock. That being said, the exception to that rule, there are a few lasts out there, and this is one of them. The 9220 is one of them. This is a size 9, and I would definitely not want to go any larger than that, most certainly. There was so much room in the beginning until it started to relax and break in, and now the fit is beautiful. It's still got a ways to go, but you've got a structured heel and toe on this, which is, again, what you would want to see and expect from an outdoor and active footwear focused boot, but that is going to take some additional breaking in around at least the heel here, and the structure wraps quite far away around the heel, more so than you would expect from most other boot makers up to a certain quality level. So that is something to bear in mind, that you will actually want to follow their advice and go down one full size. So now that you know about the brand and you know the finer details about the boot itself, the next thing for us to do is to take this out around town, take this out onto the trails, really start to get them broken in, work them out, and come back and see what we think, give it a final review, and tell you where we felt that this boot excelled and fell short, and if it was worth that price. So let's go. And we are back. So I have been wearing these for a couple months now through a lot of different conditions around the office, taking them out around town. We've had a lot of snow, we've had some nice sunny days, some really wet days out on the trails, and got some interesting opinions, takes on this boot after actually really going into depth on wearing them and testing them out. So before I get into the scoring and some of the criteria here, I just want to remind everybody that on this channel, we purchase all of these boots ourselves, and that's so that we can give impartial and honest reviews. These are very expensive boots, so I hope you can appreciate that we do not intend or try to take handouts from any manufacturers during the future of this channel as it grows, just so that we can stay impartial and as brutally honest as we need to be. So please give us your support, like and subscribe if you like what you're seeing. If you want to help us out, that would be great. But let's get into the review a little bit more here. So the scoring, we will look at 5 criteria and then give an amalgamated score at the end. We will look at the performance and usability, the fit and comfort, build quality, weight, and then finally the appearance. And from that, we will then give a final score out of 10 toes, unique to Sole Purpose's rating system here. So to get started, the performance and usability of this boot. Unfortunately, we give this a 5 out of 10. The reason for that is the placement and the intended audience for this boot seems a little unclear. It's obviously intended to sort of be an outdoor and active footwear, but it is not great when truly taking this out on the trail. It is really heavy, it's really clunky. It's not great in the snow or in mud, as I found. It is excellent on really sharp, really rocky trails actually, because you've got that really thick veg tan midsole and this big commando lug. It's really stiff and it's very robust, so it mitigates how much you are feeling from the trail as far as a lot of that sharper rocks or things coming up from the bottom, and it also reduces the fatigue on your foot when you're climbing over stuff like that for a long period of time. But you definitely sacrifice a lot of trail feel. Having a good sense of foot placement, that stiffness actually also leads to a lot of rolling, and there's not a ton of ankle support to help mitigate that. So it sort of introduces issues as it's trying to solve others, and it does not excel in sort of the intended use you would think of maybe wetter, snowier conditions, colder environments. So then looking at this as more of a everyday wear in the wintertime boot, again, it's a little bit difficult to place this. This is a very expensive boot, amazing, you know, construction quality and things like that. But I have to say, these D-rings up at the top do not make this boot easy to put on. So you can't just kind of slip into it if you want to just take the dog out for a walk for a quick trip around the block or something like that. And I'll try to illustrate it here, but this is what it looks like when you try to undo the speed laces, the speed hooks here. You've just got this weird braided mess in the middle that you are then trying to unravel and re-line up to these, or you have to pull it out and re-string it through these D-rings every single time, which if you've ever used this many speed hooks on something without any tension on such a stiff and kind of robust build right here, the speed hooks just start to undo themselves while you're trying to get the laces through the D-ring. So the design here as far as usability just does not seem that well thought out. I don't understand it. You almost never see D-rings like this capping a series of speed hooks. So a little bit difficult to place the audience and the purpose of this boot. So that's why we're giving it a 5 out of 10, just because it's not really that great in any environment. It's not that great on snow, it's not great on the trails, it's cumbersome and a little difficult to get into. It's designed to be worn for a long period of time though. That is clear. So kind of hard to tell what period and what use and for whom this is for, other than for maybe spending a long time walking around town, I guess, things like that, which I'll touch on a little bit more as we get towards fit, comfort, and the appearance. So speaking of which, moving on to fit and comfort, this gets an 8 out of 10. This boot is actually incredibly comfortable. That can't be argued against. This build, as it starts to break in and the leather relaxes to the shape of your foot, and you just start to break in that veg tan insole and maybe loosen up some of that midsole, it is a really comfortable boot. It was very easy to wear this for hours and not notice it, other than how hefty and robust it was. Great marks from that perspective. And again, the size 9, definitely the right size for such a large boot. I mean, this starts to really fit nicely once it starts breaking in. In fact, I don't have to wear really thick wool socks anymore. I can wear thinner socks and it is relaxing enough to still feel secure and snug on my foot, but then has that breadth and allowance for thicker socks if I do need it when I do take it out on the trails. Then for build quality, 9 out of 10. I mean, it's hard to argue against Viberg's build quality. There's no question about how beautifully constructed these are. The fit and finish everywhere I look is excellent. The materials are fantastic. Everything just felt rock solid. There is nothing amiss, nothing out of place. The finishing is superb, and you would hope so. It's quite an expensive boot, so glad to see that they're at least living up to that aspect of this, so high marks there. Then we move on to weight. From there, we're giving this 5.5 out of 10. Again, this is a really heavy boot. I mean, even as far as boots go, I have other hiking boots, I have other all leather constructed boots, I have engineers that weigh less than these boots. They're really stiff, they're really robust, they are chunky, so not great for hiking trails. Just sort of hard to see what this boot is really serving and whom it's serving. So we gave give it a big ding on that just because it's a pretty intense boot. You have to be a little bit tolerant of it. It is an all sort of heritage, robust, all leather construction. I mean, you've got a thick veg tan midsole, thick veg tan insole, 3 layers of lining, really thick, nice quality upper here. I mean, this is a boot that is designed to last forever. So that is something that you have to keep in mind and is going to be a trade-off then, right? You've got that incredible and impeccable quality, but it's gonna weigh a lot. And a lot of those Pacific Northwest boots are also very heavy. So that's not necessarily a downside. It had a more focused and intentional function. Those Pacific Northwest workwear boots are for some of the most rugged, rough, demanding environments. This is not. It doesn't have those same features. It's short, so it's just a little bit weird for how intensely built this is and how seemingly impractical it is in most areas of use. But I won't keep trying to harp on that. Then lastly, for appearance, we give this a 7 out of 10. It's a good looking boot. It's not bad. This does come in a few other trims and different leathers. There's also the Pachina Bay, which has a little bit higher ankle and padded ankle support there, which again, a little more hiking focused to allow for that comfortable movement of the ankle, which this sort of lacks. This also has a pretty even top here, so not ideal to allow for a lot of ankle movement on steep and changing terrains. It's a decent shape. It's a nice profile. It's not bad, but it's not very refined or elegant. So again, this isn't something like some of the other boots that we've reviewed that you can go from the hiking trail or that you can take from one environment where this would be the most useful, more active, cold, difficult, where you need that weather resistance, you want that durability and toughness, and then move into another environment that's maybe a little bit, you know, a little bit lighter, somewhere indoors, going to dinner, whatever, going to the brewery, anything like that. It is pretty brutal and industrial, as they said, in its design and appearance. It's okay. It's not that pretty of a boot, especially when all laced up, and I don't love the shape as much as I do for some other hiking boots, but it's not bad. It's still a good looking boot. It's tastefully done. It just could be a little bit better. So what is our final amalgamated score for this? Then we have 6.9 out of 10 for the Viberg Hiker. So not terrible, but not great. Is it worth the price? Ultimately, no. I think brutally, honestly, no. It's just not. It's so expensive for what you're getting, and it's so narrow in its focus and its use and versatility. This is very much geared towards a certain type of clientele who can afford this footwear, who are not very serious about their outdoor active wear, who, I don't know, maybe just some very mild light trail work, just gravel paths, who want something that is just exceptionally made, that is going to last forever, is beautiful quality. That is really what this is. It's a design that it's from the 1960s and it has sort of outlived its time, and they keep it around maybe for nostalgia and just that, you know, it is a cool glimpse into that history of the brand, and it does still meet all those same levels of detail and quality and longevity, and it's an excellent just as a standalone boot. I think where it gets a little bit challenging though is that they define it as this alpine trekker and outdoor explorer, and it's just not, and it hasn't been for 40 years. And so that gives it a little bit of a confused identity, especially, you know, we've got this thin silhouette lining and all this stuff. But, you know, if you were somebody who lived in a city like New York where you're gonna get unpredictable weather, you're gonna do a lot of walking, and you want something that is really durable and high quality and, you know, still tasteful but has a little bit of that rugged outdoor flair, this could be something for you. It's a little bit questionable. Again, it's not quite as fashionable or as elegant and tasteful as I might personally want if that is your intended use, but maybe one of the other finishes like the wax leather or some of their rough out choices actually might be better suited for those environments. So that's just something to keep in mind. But anyway, thank you all for participating. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed and hope to see you on the next one. Thanks.